wake up and wipe my crusty eyes. I press the button to raise my electronic adjustable bed into the sitting position. The mattress is damp with sweat. The numb throb of my shattered legs seems to pulse inside of the plaster casts constricting them. My head is foggy. My memories are dull, but not forgotten, only distant and hazy, as if viewed through a frosted window. The window. The trigger brings me back as I stare out the black glass overlooking the dreaded night. It all comes back then in a torrent of unease, the memory of how I ended up here. It was almost a week ago, I think. This medication muddles time. I couldn't sleep during the storm. It's unusual to have any noise in the quiet suburbs off County Line Road, a half hour from the city. I was alerted from a distinct creak and tapping on glass. An intruder, I thought, as my heart raced. I leapt to my feet and fetched my bat. "What is it?" my partner, Carrie, groaned, half asleep and wearing that pillowy mask over her eyes. "I heard something. Stay there," I whispered, and her form shifted in the blue light. I slid my arms through the sleeves of my robe, aluminum bat and all. Weapon clenched tightly in my fist, I opened the door and listened, with my breath held, as the hum of the fridge became audible. The rustling of trees made themselves heard through the still of the night. Strange, I thought. The window at the end of the hall was open. I never left it open. It was the second-story window, though, so I never bothered to lock it. I looked down the dimly lit corridor, its perfect symmetry pulling me down to the rectangle of black glass that overlooked the 3-meter gap between buildings. No way up without a ladder, and what a nonsensical idea that would be, climbing up there when the other windows were far more accessible via the roof of the neighbors. Still, it was open. A chilly breeze blowing in from the open pane, which somehow offered no visibility, just black. I walked quietly down the carpeted hall and realized it was too dark out there, like something was obstructing the view. I was only maybe 10 feet away when I saw the dim triangles of light in the window corners. Something nearly the size of the window was blocking the view. My heart loudened, my throat dried, and my stomach filled with ice that twisted inside me. Something was wrong. It was round, and my mind tried to understand what was impossible, how the edge of the shape seemed to be covered in wisps of hairs, how it seemed to have depth. My mind was playing tricks with the shadows, surely. It wasn't something flat against the pane. The shape had depth and mass. A wrinkled, fleshy egg 1 meter tall and nearly 1 wide. I slowly slid 1 foot past the other, closer and closer, until I saw. It was a head, like some hyper-realistic, oversized mask of an old man with wide, leering eyes, barely visible in the shadow, backlit and impossibly large. I walked closer in disbelief, making out the wrinkled frown lines, the down-turned nose almost 1 foot tall, eyes like milky white bowling balls, the parting thin lips, the width of my waist that only grew wider until teeth, each the size of a fist, were slowly revealed. Those humongous orbs of foggy gray stared at me in glee as the brow raised into folds like a drawn curtain, and the bushy white eyebrows on that speckled old face lifted higher, and it blinked. It was no mask. I screamed like a stuck pig and I ran, scrambling backwards as that humongous watching head slid to the side and out of the window's framed view. Footsteps thumped behind me, and I yelped before realizing it was Carrie behind me. She asked what happened, and I told her about the face, but of course, she didn't believe me. She listened as I spoke, but then suggested an optical illusion, I was half asleep, and other rational possibilities. She didn't believe me, of course. She talked me out of it because nobody could even get up there, and she was right. I locked the window and returned to bed, but I didn't sleep a wink. The next few days, I was tired and distracted. I looked for news about something large, something spotted that could explain anything like what I swore I saw in the tri-state area. But of course, there was none. Just home invaders of normal stature, of course. Carrie convinced me to chalk it up to a nervous breakdown. I had been stressed at work, as she pointed out, and after the passing of time, I began to question my own memory of the event. A day passed, and then another. 3 nights later, I saw it again. I was at work late, just trying to finish our quarterly report on time. My eyes were tired, but coffee would just keep me up all night. I should have just left, but I stayed, and then I felt the chill of the wind. I first thought it to be the air conditioner, but my gaze locked onto the window overlooking the street. The window was ajar. I stood and walked over to the reflective glass and looked out. Nothing, just streetlights and the occasional car hissing down wet asphalt. As I walked over to close the window, the reflected angle of the office behind me shifted, and I could see the reflection of the shadows just around the office corner to the unlit kitchen. Something was in the kitchen, something large and heaving with deep breaths. They were deep and low and wheezing, barely audible, and as I turned slowly around to view the form, it emerged. I gasped for air as an enormous, decrepit figure hobbled out, that horrible wide smile on a gargantuan head. It crawled forth with long, sagging arms the size of jointed tree trunks. Fingers the size of arms pressed large fingertips into the carpet as it approached with wild, hungry eyes. It would have been 18 feet tall upright, but it was hunched over to fit in the office. It crawled quickly towards me on folded, shaky legs. I screamed and stumbled back to the window as that horrific, smiling giant lumbered over, drooling thick streams of glassy saliva out from those massive teeth, each a chipped coffee mug in those steaming jaws that shivered in anticipation. I was cornered and looked out to the vacant sidewalk a few stories below. It was my only escape. I jumped out the window and into the cold air as that horrific thing shambled towards me. I could nearly count the seconds as my stomach rose in that fall. The cold wind raced over my skin and my clothing rippled loudly as I fell. I tried to bend my legs to soften the landing and failed. With a loud crack that popped open my skin, my legs snapped on landing. Grainy screams poured from my hoarse throat and pulled close a few hesitant bystanders. They gawked, took video, and tried to console me, but how could they? Someone had clearly called 911 because eventually flashing lights arrived and I was lifted into an ambulance before I passed out from the pain. I woke up in the hospital, legs plastered and raised. They itch, and I asked for something to reach the scratch with, a hanger or even a proper toothbrush. They won't oblige. They keep sending the shrink in to question me about why I jumped. They think I'm suicidal or crazy, but I don't want to hurt myself. I need to defend myself. But of course, nobody would ever believe me. I'm immobile now. The steady drips of IVs send narcotics through my blood to numb the pain. The pills they gave me were supposed to ease my mind away from the anxiety and paranoid delusions they swear are in my head. Even Carrie thinks I've gone mad. My family does too, yet I see it out there as I type. I see the large face gawking from outside that black window, a twitching eye, and half a toothy smile peeking in at me, watching, waiting.